This morning I woke up at about 5 and thought, oh well, it's a bit too late to go back to sleep because we needed to leave between 6 and 7 and still one or two things to stow and whatnot. So I slowly got myself out of bed to the sound of an incredibly loud cracking lightning very close to us. So that was the start of the day. Bit weird, didn't really want to be going out of here in a lightning storm, but that went. I checked on Rain Viewer, which is the app we use for local weather in real time, and it showed no big system or anything like that. It was just a local system above us, but nevertheless a little bit disconcerting. Don't want to be going out of here in a rainstorm. So this is us leaving the beautiful atoll of Maratua, however you want to pronounce it. And we're going through the channel. This time we've got the current with us. It's a falling tide and it's pushing us out of the atoll. Still got to be very, very careful, but so far so good. How much current?
We've got 2 knots.
Yes, we've got a big 2 knots pushing us through. Same little fishing boats there watching. But it is very difficult. I can't spot because we've got the sun straight in front of us, so I'm not seeing anything through the water. What's happening at the moment then?
We're just going through those overfalls, which when we came in were absolutely horrendous, with the boat doing this. A little bit more manageable now. We're already at 71 metres, so we're clear of the channel and we can turn to starboard and head to Tolitoli. Hooray! 150 miles to go.
The average depths ahead of us are between 2,000 and 5,000 metres, and looking at the chart it looks as though we've got nothing between us from the point of view of land until we get closer to Tolitoli. No obvious reefs are showing up, but obviously we will keep checking the charts as we go all the way through. Now it's 150 miles, which means it will be overnight. It's, what's the time now, is just gone 7 AM, which gives us the day to get as far as we can across the straits here, and then overnight, and then we will be coming into Tolitoli in the morning. That was the idea, because we don't really like to go anywhere, arrive somewhere new at night if we can help it. It means of course that there will be watches, but usually when it's just one night like this, we both tend to stay up for most of it and have a bit of sleep here and there. But we'll see how it goes. We'll judge it. It depends very much on the weather and what the going's like.
Just an example of sailing in Southeast Asia and passage planning according to the winds. Up until yesterday when we checked the forecast, we had some south-southwesterlies, and they were blowing up through the channel between Kalimantan on the west and Sulawesi on the east. This would have been perfect for a beam reach all the way to Tolitoli, and the winds were forecast to blow up to about 15 knots. Would have been perfect. Well, I've just managed to get the last forecast before we lose internet connection from the island, and the winds have dropped away, and what winds there are have come round to the southeast, so we'll have wind on the nose. Isn't that just typical of sailing in Southeast Asia? It's really frustrating. I don't really fancy the idea of motoring 150 knots, 150 miles. Perhaps if we can maintain a speed of, I don't know, over 5 knots for a time, then maybe we can give the engine a rest later and just cruise at 3 knots for a little bit. But as Liz explained, we don't really want to come into a new port at night, especially because of course there'll be lots of FADs, fish attraction devices, dotted around the place, local fishing boats and so on. So yeah, just so bloody typical, isn't it? Can't remember the last time we saw dolphins on the bow of Esper, but there they were. There was a little one. He appeared to be on his own, but I think there was 2 or 3 of them, and the little one came over and added a little play. Always lifts the spirits when you see dolphins. course, as is expected, the group of 4 boats is very slowly dispersing. We do have about 2 knots of current with us. I'll be interested to see how that changes over time. But at this rate, as long as we maintain this speed, we should be there with really good time. Lovely clear sky behind. We've got a bit of cloud building in front of us, and we saw a little water spout as well. But yeah, the dolphins make up for the motoring.
Do you hear that? It's the sound of no engine. We've been doing over 7 knots for the last 2 or 3 hours, so we thought, even though we've not got that much wind, about 10 knots of wind on a beam reach, we thought we'd try no engine and just the sails. We've got them all out. We're reaching just over 4 knots, which is slightly less than we want to be doing, but we've gained those extra knots in the last few hours by doing 7. So even if we can get an hour of sailing in, it's just lovely not to have that sound of that droning engine going on.
When was the last time we got the Kraken out? I think it was back in KK, just dicking around on a very light wind day sail. So it's great to be getting her out on a proper passage, eh? Still only do about 4 knots, but we've got 10 knots of wind true coming across the beam. So perfectly acceptable for the moment. Well, I managed to set the sails correctly, and we were getting up to 5.5 knots out of 10 knots of wind across the beam, which is not bad at all. And then the wind died. We've literally got 5 knots of wind. It takes double figures really for Esper to do anything useful. Otherwise we drop down to less than 3 knots. So it's a bit of a disappointment, isn't it? Occasionally there's a little gust, but it was forecast to die away. To be honest, actually surprised we even got some wind in the first place. But there we go. It was nice while it lasted. My general rule of thumb is if you go under 3 knots and turn the engine on. Now, I don't think this would matter so much if we were doing an ocean passage, I could handle that. But when you're doing a short hop like this is literally just a day and a night and a day. Then, we could just be flogging around here for ages. So, yeah, we were going down to 2 knots. So would have taken rather a long time to get there, but as you can see, look, the sea's completely flat. There's no wind. When I last looked, not even 5 knots. But look at this sea. Good that there's no crap here. There's no plastic. That's something that is really nice to see. There's no rubbish at all so far. There's the ship. We've got a ship on our port bow who's coming across because, of course, this is a shipping lane. And beautiful day, eh? Now we've got some mare's tails up there. And mare's tails normally indicate the beginning of a low or something coming in. So we'll take our cue from those and just be on guard. And night time, what we tend to do is reduce sail a little. So perhaps taking a bit of main and perhaps reef the Yankee as well. But we'll take stock of the situation as the sun goes down and see if we've got any wind to actually do some sailing again. Right, now we are sailing at 6 knots. Earlier we were sailing at 3 knots, so we turned the engine on, motor sailed for a bit, wind dropped down below 5 knots, and then suddenly a gust comes along and we've got 10 knots. So don't forget we've got a bit of current as well pushing us, but even so we don't want to get there too late. So yeah, it's a game of stop and start. When we get the gust, we turn the engine off and we cruise along nicely, and then the wind drops away and you think, oh, that's the end of the wind for the day. So you turn the engine on, logbook's filling up very quickly. Engine on, engine off, engine on, engine off. It's quite busy, not really busy, but there are quite a few boats. We can see quite a few commercial vessels on AIS. As I said earlier, this is a shipping lane, so they do appear. You know, it's not exactly the M25, but there's enough to keep you on your toes and just to always keep a lookout. Late afternoon sailing. Wind seems to have sort of settled on anything between 10 and 12 knots, and we're doing anything between 5.5 and 7 knots, which is great. Unfortunately, at one point we lost the wind and the autopilot got confused and we ended up going back on ourselves, and I'd forgotten that Liz had 2 lines out, so she is now having to spend her afternoon unravelling 2 crossed fishing lines. Oops. Anyway, good conditions, enjoying it. Did you see the size of that log? Oh, wouldn't fancy hitting that. I've just attempted to show you a screenshot there of what's going on. We've caught back up with Songlines 3, that's the AIS target that you can see to our starboard side. And you'll see that I'm also tracking a ship using the radar, which is the red blob. And you'll note also that I had marked a waypoint called ship. So anytime I see a ship that doesn't have an AIS target, and it's going to be in close proximity, I tend to put a waypoint in so I can get a rough idea of which direction it's moving in. Sue and Ian on Icy Red have just radioed through to say they've actually been through a whole load of boats with red lights, so we're keeping a keen eye out. I thought we'd turn the engine off, get the Kraken out, and of course in between that process the steaming light is still on, so it's lighting up the Kraken very nicely. This is against the coal regs, of course. We should have the steaming light off, but just wanted to give you a little glimpse of what the Kraken looks like at night time.
We heard a bang and then we heard another loud bang. I'd put the engine in neutral. You grabbed the torch, you ran out the back, and there's a bloody great big log. So we hit a big log.
And when you say hit, you think the rudder?
Well, that's what I think, because I think it was 3 bangs, wasn't it? It was certainly 2. I didn't.
Yeah.
By the 3rd one, I went to turn the prop off to just put it in neutral. But yeah, difficult to know, isn't it? But you've checked down below. You can't see any water coming in, I hope.
Not yet, no.
Okay. Have to keep checking it, I suppose.
So as dawn breaks over Sulawesi, we complete our transit across the top of the Macassar Strait. And it's not been a bad crossing at all. Didn't do as much sailing as we would have liked to have done. There was quite a bit of motor sailing, but what sailing we did get was good. The highlight, of course, was getting the Kraken out at night, which is not something I've done before, and we hit 7.5 knots. And although we've had current all the way, the current at that point was only 1 knot, so that's not bad at all. And the wind was sort of between 12 to up to 14 knots occasionally. But the wind's been a bit funny. It's been a little bit variable. So when we got the Kraken out, we managed about an hour's worth of good sailing, and then the wind came round, slowly came onto the nose. Had to put that away. The wind then switched over to the east, so we had to tack the staysail, and now it's come back round to the west again. But there's only about 3 knots now. But yeah, the Kraken was definitely the highlight. The low light was hitting that bloody log only half an hour ago. That was really quite scary. As Liz says, it hit the boat at least twice, maybe 3 times, and it certainly sounded like it actually hit the prop. But I went down and checked the bilges, and nothing so far, but just need to keep an eye on that. So yeah, the only other funny thing was the depth sounder. Now, we've been going over, in fact we went over 5 kilometres of sea at one point, and the depth sounder normally plays up when you go over very deep water. It normally shows 3 straight lines to show that you're in very deep water, but occasionally it will flash up a random depth like 10 metres for a few seconds. But there was a period for about half an hour when it was showing a constant 10 metres, then 9, then 8, then 9, then 10, then 15, then 9. And it happened at about 2 in the morning when I was very tired, and it messed with my mind. I got a bit freaked out by it because I've never seen that before. But yeah, there we go. So yeah, mixed bag. And we're now going to be approaching shallower waters, and by shallower waters I mean back to 100 metres rather than 2,000 metres. And I'm just now, as I'm talking to you, the light is changing all the time, and I can just see mountain. Oh wow, big ass mountains.
Oh, love them! Hi guys! Wow, this is so fast! Look! Yeah. He's loving it!
I'm clean, I've had a shower, feeling quite fresh now, and just wanted to comment on this. Is the vista that we are greeted with as we approach Tolitoli on Sulawesi, an island that I'd never really even heard much about until very recently. Liz says she's been researching it for years, she's always wanted to come here, but yeah, this is all new to me. And I think I may have said before that a number of people have said how much they love Tolitoli. We're not exactly sure why, but based on the natural beauty of it, I can see why. Looking forward to checking this place out.